I'm seeing as a recurring theme, though, from both retailers and consumer brands is there's this heads down, focus on what's on fire today and not looking forward into the future and saying, what are some of the things we have to do now or plan for now or test now that will set us up for the long term? And
Mhm.
as a merchant myself, you had to keep one foot in executing today and another foot in what's coming down the road for tomorrow. And you didn't really get to choose. You had to have a vision for both. You had to execute today and plan for tomorrow. And I think through the work that you and I and the team are doing at Rethink Advisory, that's the advice that we're trying to take the incredible breadth of knowledge and expertise that it lives amongst that group and saying, you pick an area of the business, but you've got to be, occasionally stick your head up and look forward into the
Yeah.
future.
Welcome back.
Welcome back
to another episode of the Innovate On Purpose podcast.
hosted by Matt Mueller.
Best-selling author of The Mindful Innovator and Rethink Retail's top retail expert.
We can help retail leaders find clarity so they can grow their businesses purposefully.
We will uncover mindful tips, innovative solutions, and purposeful leadership advice and strategies that you can apply immediately to your retail innovation.
Are you ready to innovate on purpose?
Hey, before we jump into the episode today, I just wanted to say thank you for hitting the play button. You being here fires me up, and I cannot wait to share with you the insights that are going to make a difference in your business. Do me a favor, hit the subscribe button and leave a review so I can reach as many retail leaders as possible. They too need to hear this. Okay, let's do it. Well, retail isn't just changing, it's already changed. The consumer is digital first and they expect retailers to keep up. But too many organizations are still clinging to outdated, siloed processes that simply can't deliver what today's shoppers demand. On this episode of Innovate on Purpose, I'm joined by Scott Benedict, founder and chief of Benedict Enterprises, a Rethink retail advisor, and former Walmart director. Scott has spent his career leading retail transformation, and today he'll share with us why digital is now at the consumer's front door. Today, he will share why digital is now the consumer's front door, what retailers must rethink to stay relevant, and how to break down silos to create seamless omnichannel experiences that win loyalty. Scott, thank you so much for being on the show today.
Matt, thank you for having me. I've been looking forward to this and having the opportunity to chat. And I think there's a lot of great and exciting things happening in retail right now to talk about.
Absolutely. Yeah, we've been on the Rethink Retail Advisory together for a bit of time right now, and our conversations have been great. And just it's amazing to see what you're doing out there in the industry. So super excited to have you on the show today so we can discuss the things that you're doing and how we need to rethink retail, because it truly does need to be evolved, and it is changing, right? It has changed.
Indeed.
And one thing you said, Scott, that you say all the time is that the consumer is already at digital first. So what does that mean exactly?
Well, it's interesting because from the early days of e-commerce, there was this propensity among retailers, brands, industry practitioners from a lot of different roles to have this, what I call a channel mentality, which is to view store retail and online retail as these separate things with separate customers. I even had a fair number of debates over this with some people with PhDs in their title when I was teaching retailing at Texas A&M, and the recurring question in academia was, hey, Scott, which do you think is going to win out, stores or online? And throughout all those conversations and every other conversation, it's like the consumer is really voting for the ability to bounce back and forth between either one of those. And the path to purchase is not, in my mind, linear anymore, where you're just an online shopper or you're just a store shopper. The consumer really bounces back and forth between both to find the information, the availability, look at price, look at ratings and reviews, and ultimately how they consume the product or take delivery of the product could happen digitally. It could happen through a local store delivery, or it could involve them using information that they got digitally and walking into a local store. So it really has evolved to be a nonlinear, but a very integrated kind of path to purchase these days. And I argue that a lot of retailers and a lot of consumer brands don't yet have that mentality of it being an integrated path to purchase.
Yeah, I do see that it's integrated. I mean, we talk about omni-channel and, that's kind of like the way we have to think about our retail business these days. And totally agree with that. Though it's become more of like a kind of just a buzzword, right? But yeah, totally. We have to think about that integration of the two. And I remember myself, like maybe 10 years ago, defending in store and
Yes.
almost like saying digital, no, it's bad, digital. Like it's not. It's like we're putting so much attention towards it, but yet it's a small part of our business.
Yes.
And I think that's kind of like the.
I heard that one more than a few times, man.
I
So yeah.
know, I know. It's like it's an easy excuse to throw out there that like, I'm not going to focus on digital because 80% of my sales are still coming from in store. But thinking about the integration and where consumers are seeing your brand for the first time is something that we really need to think about because, yeah, 80% of people might come into the store to finish the transaction, but that's not where it started. And I think that's just a really interesting way to kind of just think about it, a different kind of like a shift in your mindset, thinking about it that way.
Indeed. Yeah, and it's also interesting, Matt, to see the sheer number of retailers that now have installed Wi-Fi service in their store intentionally so a consumer can pull out a mobile phone and do a little research about either that specific product that they're standing in front of in the store or perhaps how else to get it. Big things like mattresses or those outdoor
Yeah.
play yards or things that have a service attached to them, like tires or automotive service. That you're seeing a lot of mobile digital devices used while shopping in a physical store, just
Yeah.
like you see people encountering a product or a retailer digitally that then drives them into a store to consummate a purchase. So it's interesting to see how that has evolved.
That is interesting. It's like digital assisted in the store. Which is, yeah, absolutely. I do see that trend as well. And I actually tried to address that in grocery. One of the issues that we faced in the grocery business was in the deli specifically,
Yeah.
long lines at the deli counter. And
Yes.
you would get to the deli counter and you have to stand there and wait for 10, 15 minutes for a service. Pull a ticket. It's like the old DMV, right? You pull the ticket and you have to stand there and wait. But well, why not have something where you can pick like, your spot in the queue at the deli and then go shop the rest of the store and then come back when it's your turn.
Yes.
So, okay, well, let's put something together that's like a text queue system. So we started putting this amazing system together. You go there, you scan the QR code, and then you go shop the rest of the store, and your phone will push a notification to you when it's your turn. Problem was technology in the store did not support that, and these tin boxes that grocery stores are in had really bad cell phone service. So people were shopping the rest of the store and not coming back to the deli because they just weren't getting the
Yes.
notification.
Yeah. No, it's wild. I was actually, because I was involved in the consumer electronics business, I was probably the merchant who I was advocating to my company. This is when I was with Sam's Club, that we needed Wi-Fi service in the building. Yes, to sell my product category, to sell consumer electronics, to demo it, but it really had to make the argument it's useful in a number of other areas. And that's when mobile apps were still an emerging commerce vehicle. Now, to your point, there's so many different ways that a consumer can either pre-order or be getting a service while they're shopping for merchandise, and then hearing an update, oh, your car is ready, or your appointment to get your hair done is, your stylist is ready to go. There's so many ways that the two interact, but having Wi-Fi service in the building is so helpful as a facilitator of that, that makes the mobile device a platform that a retailer can really use to their benefit.
Yeah, yeah. I'm going back into my mind, like thinking about like 10 years ago too, like and kind of the things that I would make up in my head to say, well, this isn't really, necessary. Like, okay, well, let's put cell phone boosters in the store. Like, well, no. Like, why do I want them to scroll Facebook while they're freaking shopping my stores? But that's not the case anymore, right? It's
Yes.
not that you're putting it in so they can go scroll on Facebook or do something else. It's to get the job done, and it's something that consumers are starting to get to an expectation of having.
Yes. Well, it's interesting because not only our retailers have got Wi-Fi service, but every fast food company that I can think of, from McDonald's to others, they've got Wi-Fi in their buildings. Obviously, coffee houses like Starbucks have got it because they want people to linger and buy more products while they're there. So it feels like we were kind of on the edge of it going from "Have you lost your mind?" to "Wow, that's a pretty good idea," and it went from one to the other pretty quickly. It felt
Yeah,
like.
yeah, it just was a complete shift overnight.
Yeah, some of my competitors thought we had lost our minds when we put Wi-Fi in our Sam's Club. They really thought we'd lost it. Now they all do it. So
Yeah, look at that. Yeah, early to the game. So I think a lot of retailers aren't embracing digital first right now. So why are so many retailers behind the curve on this? Why are they not seeing the benefit here?
yeah, well, some of it alludes to what we were talking about earlier. This channel mentality, which said, well, digital's smaller than physical, so let's not start there. That's an adjunct. Let's add that assortment on. Let's add that approach on. And what's interesting is that now, because there's obviously the benefit of retail media and the ability to garner marketing dollars, the consumer is learning about new products. There's an opportunity to show new products to them through digital. It really, what I'm seeing, and bear in mind, I come at the world from a merchant's eye a little bit, is that online presence has the ability to show a much wider assortment of products that then you can take not only the revenue and the learnings from that larger online presence, then your store assortment can be a cut down of that. So in other words, instead of starting with store assortment and expanding out because online has the endless aisle capabilities, now
Hmm.
I'm seeing retailers go in the other way, which is let's take this very broad online assortment and take what we learn about it both broadly and perhaps regionally or by demographic or other metrics and say, okay, that gives us intel that makes our store offering better and more precise to meet the needs of our customer
Yeah.
broadly, but even in regional or specific locations, that we got intel out of that, data out of that that help us refine and improve what's available in a local store.
Yeah. So you're almost curating what you have in store based off of the results that you're getting from the online
Yes.
presence.
You're
Yeah.
curating down and instead of expanding out. And I think that's the shift of mindset that I'm seeing a lot of leading retailers start to take.
I love that because it's almost like a test and learn type of thing, right? Where it's like and I actually have a couple of CPG clients that are doing the same thing too, where they're, D2C, and before they ever, pitch anything to a grocery store, to a retailer, they're saying, hey, well, let's test it out on our D2C channel first and say, well, hey, look, this is our best seller
Yeah.
online. So why don't
Yes.
you have this in your stores? So it gives them the basis of, well, this is what you should have. So it gives them a better sales pitch. And also make sure that they are pitching the best products to those stores as well. So this way, it's they're not wasting time by building up distribution for something that's not going to be
Indeed.
successful. So it makes more sense to be able to iterate faster when you're
Yeah.
using digital.
Yeah, I can tell you both from my lens as a former buyer, I tried some things online that items that maybe I wasn't certain of or whether the consumer would embrace. In a number of cases, products that I started with online found their way into the physical store assortment because of learnings I got. But at the same time, one of the things I'm seeing here in our Northwest Arkansas community of selling teams that sell into Walmart and Sam's is that many cases those teams are managing the marketplace assortment. So in other words, they're taking products that they have beyond what a Walmart buyer has bought and said, let's put them on the marketplace. Let's get those learnings that you were talking about, not only in sales, but what are the ratings and reviews and what feedback that can we get that maybe we refine the product before we go and sit it in front of a buyer. But I can tell you as a former buyer, it's powerful to have data informed elements of a product that someone's putting in front of me instead of just they're trying to sell me something. And if it's been out there, it's had the opportunity to be experimented with and get consumer feedback before I have to make a decision to put it on a store shelf.
Yeah.
That's kind of a neat aspect of how digital first is evolving and informing buying decisions in ways that it didn't before.
Yeah, there's a unique way to view it, and like I think what's great about marketplace, like, is that you have the Walmart consumer right there. So if you're going into a Walmart buyer,
Yes.
and you say, hey, this is selling on your marketplace. This is for the
Yes.
Walmart shopper. It's doing successful there. Why should it not be in the store? It makes more sense that way. And I think, a great storyline to kind of help.
Indeed. And I've seen
Yeah.
Amazon buyers do that as well, where they're looking at what sells on their marketplace and to make a decision to make it part of their core assortment. And I think it's going to evolve to where buyers see that and say, well, I have limited space on a physical shelf. Let me take data then that I learned on the digital shelf and make better decisions as a result of that.
Yeah. No, like thinking about the consumer, like what they expect from a digital first experience. Like, yes, okay, Wi-Fi in store, but like, what is like the biggest gap between consumer expectations today and how retailers are still operating?
Well, I think it's still interesting. We've all heard stories of some bad customer experiences had on marketplaces like Amazon, where someone who just checked all of Amazon boxes to get on, they got on there and either it wasn't a quality product or it wasn't described properly, or in some cases it was inauthentic products in the
Mhm.
fashion or the brand industry, or it was products that weren't really designed for the US market. They were designed for an overseas market that now someone is trying to sell here. So I think there's still that yes, it's a marketplace and yes, it's open to more sellers than what your buyer might say yes to. But I think there's still a need to put guardrails around who gets on your platform because I believe the consumer is still going to hold you accountable as the brand, as the marketplace owner. They hold Amazon, they hold Walmart and others accountable for things they bought there. But also, you want that consumer to have confidence that there has been at least some degree of vetting that's gone on before you've let someone on your platform. And I see Target and some others being ultra conservative in
Yeah,
terms of what they let on to their marketplace. Best Buy is now expanding their marketplace, but they're still going to be very, very, very careful about what they let on. So I guess the point is that there's a balancing act that says, yes, we want to expand the assortment. Yes, we want products that aren't available in our stores and offer them to our customers, but the customer still expects a respected retail brand to have done some diligence before
yeah,
letting them have access to something that could turn out to be a really bad purchase experience, and it will reflect upon their brand more than just the seller who sold it to them, right?
absolutely. Yeah, that's a great point. So the consumer is king, right? So it's just that consumer satisfaction is so important. And thinking
Yes.
about your digital experience, like what is consumer satisfaction within that space? And it's funny that you mentioned the story about marketplace and them still being responsible for that experience because this just happened to my wife. She purchased a pair of shoes online
Yes.
and she thought it was right from the retailer, and she's like,
Right.
"Well, this is from this brand, so this is gonna be no issues." Like, "Who's selling it?" And she's like, "What do you mean who's selling it?" I was like, "Who's the actual seller in the marketplace?" And she couldn't believe it, like, that it wasn't the brand, like, and it was, like, this third-party seller. And she actually went through with the purchase, and then she had to return it because it never got to us. Like, it was, like, 2 weeks, and she still didn't get the product. So, poor, product experience that she would have blamed Walmart if I wasn't there to defend
Yeah.
defend.
Yeah, so I think that's the big change is it's gone a little bit from the wild wild west to put some guardrails on there, but yes, we want to allow more sellers out there, and you want to go a little bit more broad, but there's still guardrails that need to be being put in place.
Absolutely. I'm curious, like, from your perspective, like Target, you mentioned their marketplace, and I know their guardrails are super strict. Do you
Yes.
feel like they've gone too far, or do you feel like that's where it needs to be?
Well, I think time will tell because I think that you want to have a broad enough assortment that it complements your existing assortment as a retailer and creates a compelling shopping experience. Whether they've gone too far or not, I don't know. They're certainly not growing at the rate that others are doing, but they also don't have the complaints that Amazon has had about experiences like what you described. I've had them, a lot of consumers have had them. So it'd be interesting to see in time whether that ends up being they loosen that up a little bit and maybe bring in more. I think it's particularly interesting in the situation like in prestige beauty where they're now coming to the end of a partnership that they had, but they still, I'm confident, want to have some upscale brands in an area that's as critical and vital to a target shopper as beauty is. So maybe you have to go a little bit more expansive to cultivate some of those brands and remain relevant to that customer when that partnership comes to an end, I think next year.
Yeah. Yeah, I think it's an interesting approach and one that is probably a little bit less riskier in the way they're going because you can always expand those guardrails and push out to where can you actually get back your brand reputation if you've gone too far and
Yeah,
create this Wild West and ruin consumer expectation. Yeah. So another thing I wanted to talk about too with you, Scott, because I know you talk about this quite a bit, is like the silos, like how legacy processes like cause these
yes,
silos and slow us down. Like, so
yes.
what are some of those most critical areas, like assortment planning or and inventory? Like, what do we need to like to really be rethinking to stay competitive?
Yeah, I think there's a couple areas that jump out immediately. Seeing inventory management and marketing are the three that, based on my background, come out the most. We just talked about, the assortment planning and how buyers both online and stores would view the online assortment as an expansion of the store versus the opposite. So we kind of touched on that. But it's
Hmm.
interesting that the signals that a online or omni-channel retailer get in terms of where demand is and how to place merchandise and place inventory appropriately, I think are making that more complex. And there's still a tendency towards a separate team managing the online inventory versus managing the store inventory. Well, store inventory gets demand from online purchases, whether that's delivery from store or store pickup orders, as well as the traditional walk in traffic. So, is your inventory planning treating digital sales as a separate inventory pool, or are those more integrated pools of inventory? So there's that. And obviously from a supply chain standpoint, there's also the issue of the fact that, planning the flow and planning how inventory is coming in historically been done by two separate teams, a digital team and a physical store team. And now between what goes into fulfillment centers, what goes into stores, and what is a more traditional order, those also are still siloed, and a lot of retailers have really got to be more integrated in their approach because you don't know where a customer is going to ultimately do the shopping, place the order, and pick up the product. And you've really got to be evolved to the point that you can serve them wherever and whenever, and that you've got your demand signals down to where you can see where do I need to place that inventory to serve a customer and to obviously spin through that inventory as fast as you can. So those areas kind of jump out to me.
And also, you mentioned marketing. Like, talk a little bit more about like the marketing side. Like, how should that kind of get integrated?
Yeah. Well, it's interesting because so many retailers had a separate store marketing team and a digital marketing team. And I've watched a lot of retailers integrate that into a marketing team that uses both digital and physical touch points as a way to create demand and to tell great promotional stories or new product introductions. So that's, I think, the big thing is that there's obviously still traditional media and traditional in-store activation that happens, in-store demos in grocery or in-store events or grand openings of new stores, that sort of thing. So you have to have a physical world expertise there, but obviously between retail media, personalization technology, digital touch points like email and social media and other touch points like that means you cannot have segmented marketing teams. And it feels like there's a movement there that perhaps is going even faster because of the lure of retail media dollars and a willingness of brands to spend on those platforms. But it's still, I'm still surprised to the degree that those are separate in a lot of retail organizations, and or they're not taking full advantage of the demand signals that are generated by understanding what a customer is looking at and buying across physical stores, online, and even just what they're searching for, both on your site and maybe across the internet more broadly. There's a lot of signals there that help you become a better digital marketer, or a better marketer at all. And I'm surprised some pretty respected retailers are not taking full advantage of those just yet.
Why do you think that is?
Well, cost is one,
Mhm.
and the other one is we've always done it that way, Scott. which which is, it's hard to really evolve and change, and there's a little bit of ownership of things that digital marketers and traditional marketers don't always play nice, just like digital merchants and traditional merchants don't always play nice. Not me personally, of course, other people's.
Of course, Scott.
But what I'm talking about there, evolving is hard, and particularly if you've had success in doing things a certain way. But I think the things that I was taught throughout my career is if you start from the customer and work back, you'll generally make good decisions. And occasionally, both as a consultant and as an advisor, I have to have the tough love conversations with clients, whether they're a brand or a retailer, and say, that's great that you've been successful in the past, but here's where the consumer is headed. Here's who the big purchaser of the future, the generations that are coming into their peak spending years, how they're behaving that's different than how older consumers are doing. So if you don't evolve, we're going to pray for you, because I'm not sure that you're going to survive for very long.
Yeah. Well, Scott, what else can we do other than pray for them? Like, where do you say?
Oh, it's
I
always
feel
good.
overwhelmed.
I advocate for more than just that in retailing, but I think that the most recurring theme, Matt, that I give to clients of mine is to kind of look for what are weak points, or what are some of the pressure points that they're seeing in their organization. And these silos have been one of the biggest issues, because it causes parts of the organization to operate in their best interest and what drives their P&L and what appears on their performance evaluations, and not what is in the best interest of the customer. One of the biggest things that I witnessed when I was still in Walmart and Sam's Club was when store managers got credit for online sales on their P&L that happened in their market. It changed the behavior almost overnight, to where it's now we're going to serve a customer and we don't care where the sale ultimately rings to the register. We're just going to take care of the customer. And that change of behavior, same thing with buyers, where they got credit for both online sales and in-store sales. That changed the behavior, changed the mindset, and it caused people to do the right thing for the customer instead of what was the right thing for their own eval, because now those things were so I think that's the advice I give is that are your incentives and your behaviors and your ways of serving the customer aligned to what they're telling you they want, or are they still rooted in things that you were doing in the 80s?
Yeah.
Which, once again, that's a little bit behind and not what I would advocate for.
Yeah, definitely. And I love that piece of advice. If you walk away from this episode doing one thing as a leader, is like, how do you make sure that you are taking into account that consumer first, and how are you measuring everyone within your organization on that consumer? I love the example of Walmart putting in on the P&L
Yeah,
online sales within that market, because that's now all of a sudden going to make that something that's important. Because I know as a retail operator, I was always focused in on gaming my P&L and making it the best possible. So I'm going to focus on what's there, because that's what I'm being measured on.
exactly. Exactly. No, and that was one of the breakthrough moments, because, store managers were treating online like it was a competitor. And same thing with online teams were treating stores like a competitor for their own brand. It's like,
Yeah.
no, that's not good. That's not consumer first. That's not consumer focused. Let's serve the customer whenever, wherever, and however they want to be served. As long as we get the sale, we don't care where it took place. Right.
Exactly. Yeah. That
Yeah.
is definitely a big shift in the way that we've been thinking about it in these industries, where, yeah, it's under the umbrella of the brand. So just let's do what's right for the brand and what's right for the customer.
Yeah, seems
But
crazy,
yeah,
doesn't it, Matt? But
it does. It
it's
does.
taken folks a while to get there.
Yeah, yeah, but it just it tells you like it shows you how something as simple as just switching what we're focusing in on, what are we measuring, can have a world of difference in our stores.
Indeed. That which gets measured is what gets done is one of the things that was
Yeah,
taught to me. And everybody kind of nods their heads and agrees whenever I say that. So
absolutely. Yeah. So, Scott, the last thing I wanted to talk about with you is Rethink Retail. I think it's an amazing resource that not that many people know about just yet because we just started about maybe
right.
like 3 4 months ago. But we have some of the retail's greatest minds, and the advisory group has been a powerful group to tap into. Like, how can Rethink Advisory help with this in mind?
It's interesting because the longer that you and I are associated with that group, the more that I learn about the incredible expertise that our colleagues and peers have in various areas of retail. And it's quite a neat kind of collection of experts and expertise in so many different areas from store design to marketing to supply chain, merchandising, and omnichannel. And it's just such an incredible collection. One of the things I think that I'm seeing as a recurring theme, though, from both retailers and consumer brands, is there's this heads down, focus on what's on fire today, and not looking forward into the future and saying what are some of the things we have to do now, or plan for now, or test now that will set us up for the long term. And as a merchant myself, you had to keep one foot in executing today and another foot in what's coming down the road for tomorrow. And you didn't really get to choose. You had to have a vision for both. You had to execute today and plan for tomorrow. And I think through the work that you and I and the team are doing at Rethink Advisory, that's the advice that we're trying to take the incredible breadth of knowledge and expertise that it lives amongst that group, and saying you pick an area of the business, but you've got to be, occasionally stick your head up and look forward into the future
Yeah,
and saying, are we ready? And how are we making the investments? Are we making the changes in processes? Do we have the expertise in house? I think that's what collectively we as a group bring to the party, is a breadth of expertise, but you have to occasionally ask someone to stop and think about the future while still executing the present, and
yeah.
that's the challenging part.
It is, yeah, and I think, like, the coolest thing about Rethink Retail is that we came from that world, so we understand it, right? It's like we all ran that side of the business. We're all senior retail leaders. So knowing that we need to get results today, but also think about the future is so important. And as you mentioned too, like, we have a breadth of so many different experts that like we cover all the silos, right? So there's the
Indeed.
silos are gone when we think retail comes into the picture because now all of a sudden we can start thinking about, okay, well, how is this decision going to impact marketing? How's it going to impact operations and supply chain? We have the expertise there. So I think it's just really unique that what we have is that expertise at a high level, and we focus in on getting results rather than just giving you a report, which so many consultancy firms that's what they do is just push,
Yes.
you know, rinse and repeat on a report.
Indeed. I think there are a number of us who can create a fine PowerPoint
Totally.
presentation, but there's the meat of what's behind that presentation and what we're talking about that I think is the real differentiating factor. To your point, is that having actually been out there and done it, we've got the expertise. And I think also because we have collectively as a group kind of a view across the industry, and not just here in the US, but in other markets around the world as well. And that broader perspective helps you as a retailer or as a brand kind of see things in a context of, if you're just looking at your business and seeing how you have historically performed, you miss best practices that others, either competitors or others maybe in adjacent industries or even in other markets around the world. I don't know if you know this, Matt, but I spent 4 years in Walmart's international division. And one of the biggest takeaways from that is not all great ideas in retailing emanate from the United States. A lot
Look at
do,
that.
but not all of them. Every market that I have visited throughout my career does something better there than we do it here in the US. It could be how they manage personnel or how they design stores or how they market. So there's something that they do better than we do. And if you don't collect those best practices, and in addition to those that happen here or with your direct competitor, you miss the broader vision of what's happening and where the learning opportunities are.
That's awesome. So what's the best thing you've seen outside of the country?
Well, I'll say this, we've embraced omnichannel here now in the last few years, but it was really embraced in places like the UK and in Europe, I think, earlier than we embraced it here. And what's interesting in some Asian markets, and China comes to mind, they've gone from behind to ahead of us in fulfilling orders out of a local store for someone to pick up or to be delivered locally. It wasn't that long ago, I felt like they were behind on that. They didn't have the infrastructure in place, and now they're innovating in ways that is truly remarkable to watch. So those are just a couple things that come to mind. There's always somebody doing something better out there, but you gotta step out of the office occasionally and go
Yeah.
find that in order to really learn and evolve your own business and your own brand.
Yeah. Or tap into some great minds at Rethink Retail to help you identify some of those areas.
In some
Wink, wink.
cases, we've done it for you, right, Matt?
Exactly. Well, Scott, thank you so much for being on the show today. Some amazing insights. I think right now people should be taking away a couple of different things here. One, first and foremost, start measuring, what's going to matter to your consumer experience on a top level. I think that's what we need to do, and start breaking down those silos and thinking about how do we integrate our total business instead of looking at them differently. So, Scott, thanks so much for being on the show again today.
My pleasure, Matt. Thanks for having me.
We have made it to the end of another episode. Thank you for tuning in. A couple of things before you go. If you have found value in this episode, I am sure you'll find value in what we have coming up. So please subscribe so you will have access and know when we launch the next episode. Also, leave a review. The more reviews we have, the further our reach becomes, and I truly want this to be heard by as many leaders as possible. Don't hog this all for yourself. I would love to hear your insights on this topic, so meet me on social media at Matt Mueller Innovation on LinkedIn and Instagram. And lastly, if you want to learn more about my story and what I can do for you and your company, go to themindfulinnovator.com. I would love to help you innovate on purpose. Until next time, just remember, bring a level of awareness to each conversation, each observation, each moment, and you can create great change in this world. Thank you.